Good morning. My name is Dr. John Crittle, and I have a great love for working with churches and clergy persons pretty much across the country. Uh, and I have spent a lot of time in accounting, have a master's in accounting to help facilitate understanding and practices and principles with churches and pastors. Uh, and I enjoy doing this. And I would encourage all clergy persons, stop taking tax advice from conventions uh, and stuff you read in a magazine or you heard somewhere. Credible sources, resources are paramount. And if the pastor can get a good person, such as Reverend Yancy, you'll be doing a great job. You need someone that you can talk to who understands the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, because this is an ever-changing uh, subject matter with pastors and money and churches and how do you get money and not pay taxes. And it's just a great opportunity to be a part of this great ever-evolving community, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I've been doing this about 35, 40 years, and I'm enjoying every moment of it.
Amen. Amen. Thank you for having us, Pastor Gunn and Dr. Crittle. It's a privilege to be here with you guys. I'm a native of Memphis, Tennessee. I joined the military in '77 and spent 28 years in the Marine Corps. They were very fortunate to have me now that I'm retired. But more importantly, I was fortunate to be in there at a time when they had minorities got an opportunity to do some great things. I was a recipient of getting my bachelor's degree through the military, and I had to remain there for 3 more years to do what they call the payback tour. And I had opportunity out of graduating from National University in California, San Diego, to receive a banking and finance degree. And the emphasis was on banking. And in the military, we have one side accounting or single accounting. If we run out of money, the government gives us more money. Whereas in real business, you run out of money, you file bankruptcy. So I had a chance to work in the comptroller shop, doing everything from payroll to budgeting. We're talking $1 million in 1983 for a young fellow from Memphis. That was just, it was just a blessing. So I fell in love with the numbers and went on and worked about 12 years with the finance department, operation department. And I met some dynamic people who encouraged me to go on with my education. It was several of us that were sponsored by a couple of investors, military alumni, if you will. So I went on to get an enrolled agent certificate. And that's just simply giving you opportunity to talk directly with the IRS. Many of you that file taxes, there's a spot on if you do the 1040 or if you do some type of software, it'll say, do you want a third party representing you? Well, I can be that third party. You just check that box and then I can talk directly with the IRS for you or on your behalf. Currently, I run Yancy Management and Trading. Started that in 2008. And I've just been going forward since that time. We do everything from teaching investments, how to get started, understanding those financial items. Taxes are a small part of my business. It's a byproduct because I'm an accountant by trade. And with the corporations and the LLCs and the partnerships, it just takes a lot of time to keep the books straight. And then at the end of the year, we file the taxes, send out the W-2s, and do the 1099s. So I'm here. I'm really excited to do this podcast. As Dr. Crittle and I was talking, I was remembering back in 1981 when I went to H&R Block for training, and then that training only took 3 weeks for you to go through and get your understanding for how to do taxes. And then when I went overseas in '99, I had the opportunity to work again with H&R Block doing international taxes. So we've come a long way from the paper and pencil to the modern day using the computer. So I have something about my information, and you can give it. We can do the email or something later. But more importantly, I'm here for you. So let the good times roll.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. Some of you all's background I was unaware of. To know now that you were in the Marine Corps for 29 years. I heard about the Marines. I heard that you all don't sleep, like a part of you all's training is like 48 hours no sleep or
Uh,
something
let's
like that. So
let's not go back. Let's not go back there.
I definitely understand. But thank you both for being able to join us and bringing all of your experience to the table. If while we're having our conversation, for those of you all that are watching, if you have any questions, please make sure that you stay muted, but place your questions in the chat. Once we get to a stopping point, we'll make sure to be able to stop and be able to ask your questions so that our panelists will be able to answer it. So here's the question. My first question. When a person is becomes a is officially a clergy person, what is the best way to identify? Is it W-2? Is it 1099? What would you say are the benefits, the pros and cons of either or, um, uh, claiming W-2 or 1099?
All right. Well, Dr. Craig, if you don't mind, we'll just rotate. So I'll take start the first question, then you can finish, and then next question you'll start it, and then I'll finish it.
Sound like a plan to me.
The It's a no-brainer regarding the 1099 person brings all of their tools and toolboxes and their pianos, their organs, their hammer, their nails. They bring all of their tools to the job. The 1099 person does that. The W-2 person doesn't bring anything to the job but themselves, and they do the work and they exchange their time for funds. So the pastor should take advantage and be happy to be a W-2 person, because the tax laws is very nice and very pleasant for them regarding housing allowance and some other things that they can take advantage of, benefits, if the accounting side of the church knows how to set that up. So the pastors that are of a denomination that can be pastors and receive a salary, they should take advantage of the W-2 side of the house and not the 1099. Now, this is for pastors. If they're in the ministry and they're working on staff, then there's an opportunity for the 1099 piece, and I'll give way to my partner over here.
Well, you start out correctly when you say it's a no-brainer. The pastor has dual status. On one hand, the pastor is an employee. On the other hand, an independent contractor. That's regarding income taxes and Social Security taxes. But one of the biggest benefits that a pastor tends to surrender when they are not on a W-2 is a housing allowance. And that is a major tax break for a lot of clergy persons. And has to be set up appropriately and properly so it can be implemented to minimize tax exposure for a pastor. The pastor and church oftentimes need a person such as myself or Mr. Yancy to help them navigate the specific particularities as required to properly set up a housing allowance to make sure that the withholding taxes are taken out correctly and reported, and that the appropriate quarterly payroll tax returns are filed on. It never fails. I have a pastor who come to me at the end of the year wanting his income to be broken down, so much is housing and so much is salary and so much is for this. They've heard this, that, and the other. You can't do it on the back end. This is about planning on the front end. So the housing allowance technically has to be planned before the incoming tax year. So around November, December is a great time to start planning for the incoming calendar year, that you can have a housing plan already in place. Um, there are pastors who think because we are church, we are exempt from taxes. Churches typically are exempt from income taxes, but not all taxes. And so the payroll tax is a real tax that churches are not exempt from. And so the W-2 is the best way, in my opinion, for a pastor. Uh, when the pastor is ready to make a major purchase, a house or automobile, it's much easier to prove your income because you have a W-2, as opposed to trying to show a profit and loss statement on your personal income and expenses and trying to show you have enough money to buy the automobile or buy the house. The W-2 kind of remedy all of that.
That's right.
Wonderful. I do have a question I thought was pretty good and fitting for this time. If W-2 is not an option, what would be the benefits of doing a 1099?
Ooh, the W-2 is always an option. As a matter of fact, it is really strongly encouraged all churches to participate so that the pastor do get the W-2, because by law, the pastor is an employee and employees must receive W-2s. The 1099 could be for additional income that a pastor may receive, for an example, anniversary money. That will go on a 1099, or some other funds that may come to, but the salary needs to be reported on the W-2. A lot of people think if I can get a 1099, I can write off all my expenses. Well, there's a simple rule when it comes to expenses. It has to be two questions you have to be able to answer. One,
Right.
is the expense ordinary? Which means if a person in my position, in similar position, would it be an ordinary expense? Number two, is it necessary? Which means if I don't take this expense, would it adversely impact my ability to earn revenue?
Right.
And if you can't say yes to both of those and have the ability to prove it, then that's not an expense. Now, I know people talk about all the time, I don't pay any taxes. I write off everything. I write off my suits. I write off my socks. I write off my cat food. I mean, people that go down the line, they just write off, write off. You can write off a number of things, and just because a person writing off and does not get caught by way of an audit or an examination doesn't mean it's legal. It means you haven't gotten caught. Like people speeding down the highway. There are a number of people who speed every day and never get a ticket, but it doesn't mean they're operating within the law. So I would encourage persons, if you're going to do the 1099, do not take the approach, I can write off everything to make my income zero. And when the income becomes zero, the question becomes, then how do you as a person live? How do you pay personal living expenses, rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries? You can't do it if you have no income. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I think when I'm thinking about that particular question, I'm thinking about the fact that there are some churches that do not want to pay the taxes, and so their preference is to just to hand the pastor a check every week and not enter into that part of engaging with the IRS. So I think it's more of a maybe fear of the unknown, or maybe not even having access to somebody that can maybe it's a volunteer that's a financial secretary, but they don't have access to, or they may not feel as though they may have the finances to be able to engage
Right.
somebody who has that type of background. Can you speak to how we can incorporate that into our churches and how to speak to the fear of not wanting to pay taxes or getting into that particular arena, so that in our minds, W-2s can be an option?
Right. Yes. As the doc said, 1 hour of training can go a long way, just like prayer can go a long way. We're living in a time where grandmama, grandfather, the deacon of the church, the steward of the church did it for so long. it makes it a habit. It don't make it the rule. So we need to change the narrative and work in this current space. Education and knowledge is power. Just because you've gotten away with it for so long, like Doc said, don't mean that your day isn't coming. So for non-denominational, for missionaries, for evangelism or evangelists, all of them can work in various capacities for a short term. They could even work under a 1099 umbrella for a short term. But when they put on the title of a pastor, they need an accountant or just have a one-time session to learn how to write how to identify their employee identification number or the tax number that the church or the denomination has. Once they identify that, it's simple to show them how to, and there's even software out there available to how to develop a W-2, how to mail it in to the IRS at the end of the year. And as Doc said, how to, it's not too late now, but you need to get started on it immediately once you get the knowledge, writing up the agreement of how much the housing allowance is going to be. So if they get X amount of dollars per week, at the end of 52 weeks, they'll have that amount and that document showing what they agreed on, that housing allowance will be paid in case a question comes back. To your point, the 1099 has been a go-to because people just didn't know. And I hate that a lot of, if you get what you pay for, you reap what you sow. And the law of reciprocity is not friendly to people who are ignorant of the law. So let's just learn better and try to go forward with doing better, and encourage them that they haven't did anything wrong because they didn't know. But now that you know, let's move forward. Don't worry about fearing. Don't worry about you doing something wrong. Don't worry about getting fired. Just be concerned that there's a new day. And now that you have the knowledge, let's just apply it in the appropriate way. Conduct ourselves accordingly, in other words. Hope that helps.
That was excellent. I do want to piggyback on what Dr. Crittle stated a little bit further back in the conversation, where you talked about your love offering is supposed to be inputted on your 1099.
Yes.
Right. So I think there's some practices that have been handed down, and people do not know that that love offering that they take up now just can't be given to the pastor without being recorded. Can you speak a little bit to the love offerings or gifts, or how that should be handled?
Not a problem. They're the basic principle we have in the accounting world and taxation. And it's simply this: funds received for services to be rendered or have been rendered is income. What they call a love offering, peace offering, heave offering, my offering, your offering is income. Now, what I've been able to do over the years with a lot of my clients who do get love offerings and birthday offerings, is, since that's not a part of their normal week-to-week operating budget, is to take their money, same amount of money, and have it put into a retirement fund for future use. And that way you don't pay any immediate taxes, and you take it out at a future time, would it be at a lower tax rate, and you have much more money to retire on. If a person has, for an example, a love offering of $5,000 in a 10-year period, that's $50,000 that in most cases pastors have no idea where the money went to, or have very little to show for it, because they don't keep up with it, because we tend to spend it on disposable goods. But if you put the same $50,000 into a retirement fund, and it's earning a modest 8%, that's a heck of a lot of money that you can have And if you keep doing that for 20 years or 30 years, and as that love offering goes up, and you still talking about 8%, you would run into the rule of 72, where money starts doubling and making money on money, or interest on interest rather. And then the pastor can afford to retire. Many of our persons are serving past their time of effectiveness, usefulness, and helpfulness because they cannot afford to retire. We spend so much time preaching and saving people that we make no plans in preparation for our own financial strength for retirement. So that's one way of dealing with deferring the taxes on those love funds. Still got them, retirement fund, they'll be there when you get ready to retire.
In addition to that, how should we receive and report funds that we get when we have speaking engagements?
Well, typically, anytime you receive $600 or more, you must fill out the W-9 for the church that you're going to, and they will, at the end of the year, send you a 1099 for the honorarium. Now, some churches will give you an honorarium that's inclusive of all your expenses. Some will give you an honorarium and they will take care of the expenses. So you have to keep up with how that money is being received. So if you get $1,000 honorarium, if you're just local, like here in Memphis, the only expense you may have is mileage. Whereas if you had the same $1,000 honorarium from a church you went to in Louisville, Kentucky, you may look at hotel, airline costs, if you flew, or if you drive the mileage there and back, food for overnight, then that's different. So you have to find out what church is going to pay all the expenditures of this one lump sum for you to take care of your expenses. That's about the biggest difference of it.
Yes. And another caveat is strategic planning in ministry. We tend to isolate it only to business, but you have, let's merge them together. For an example, you hear of entrepreneurs, you hear of people that have multiple LLCs. Those entities, the way it's structured, the pastors can do the same thing. If you're a non-pastor and you have license to preach, and you're taking engagements, as Doc said, you fill out your W-9 for bedside ministry or whatever your title of your company is. You go through the state and get your limited liability, and you can even structure it on a corporate S or C corp. But for this conversation, I'll narrow the scope down to just having a EIN number to identify your ministry and providing a W-9 to those people that you minister to, even the church that you serve with. So that opens up a whole new arena for structuring. How do you write your gas? How do you write your meals? How do you write your giving? How do you write those? How do you report that income when it comes in? And again, we don't have enough time for that one. But just know that you can structure your ministry if you're a non-pastor. But as a pastor, it's pretty much you're limited and it's structured for you. But the good news is your church can be organized in a fashion that can reap all the benefits and all of the fringe benefits, if you will, that businesses can benefit as well.
So basically, we need another episode to specifically
Absolutely.
speak to that, because I'm very interested in that. I wasn't, I see where you're going with that, did not consider it, but definitely want to give more conversation to developing your LLC or corporation and how that works in regards to your church as well as your ministry as a whole. But since you stepped into deductions, let's chat a little bit about deductions because there's so many different things in regards to um, what's considered a reasonable deduction. I do want to highlight Dr. Levant's question is that she stated that the IRS site says you cannot claim mileage to the church. Can you all speak to that? Is that, how do we interpret that?
Well, let me back up to one thing, and I come to that if you don't mind. About the W-2, I had to go back and find this because I want to make sure I got it right. Section 6051, Section 6051 of the Internal Revenue Code require employers to issue their employees W-2s. Doesn't matter if you don't have a one employee and you can have 5 members of the church. If you're an employee, you have to follow the law. And of course, the Bible puts us in a very precarious position because it says, we're to honor that which belongs to Caesar and then honor that which belongs to the Lord. And so we got to honor the law of the land. So churches have to do that. Now, in terms of mileage, particularly if I'm an ordained pastor, my mileage to my church on Sunday morning is not a deductible mileage. If I have an engagement to preach at Yancy Cathedral of Gospel Preachers, and I have to drive to Reverend Yancey's Cathedral, and it's 45 miles from my church, then the 45 miles from my church to his church is deductible against the income that I'm going to get from him, that honorarium. And from the church to my home is also deductible. But me going to my morning church, that's not deductible. Now, the only amount I may be able to claim if I leave the church and go from the church to Methodist Hospital for a visit or St. Francis or any other hospital, that yes. But going from home to the church, that's commuting. Even if it's 65 miles one way, it's still commuting.
Right.
Thank you for clearing that up. Here's another question that I thought was really interesting. About in regards to deductions. What about your home office being a deductible expense?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Well, you have to let me start on this one. You need to really identify how your home office can be consistently used, such as the square footage of your home and then the square footage of your home office. And then we can get into an 8865 or 29 form. But again, it's part of your structure and is something that's necessary. And you definitely have to have limits on what can be deducted by a percentage, if you will. If you got a 2,000 square foot home and you have 200 square foot consisting of a study, a room where you entertain company or guests, and then you have your computer and your computer printer and desk in that area. That's what you're considering. You don't consider, you don't consider anything that's not reasonable. And again, we can talk more about that. There's a formula for how you do that. And everybody may not qualify for it because you have to file the right forms. And if you don't qualify to file the right forms, then you may lose that deduction. But again, that's what we're here for, but it is a way to do it. Let me pause there.
And that office has to be exclusively used for that business. In this case, talking about as a pastor, it cannot be used for anything else. It cannot have any connection with personal use in that designated space. I've had tax exemption actually go to pastor's home to make sure that that designated space was exclusively used for ministry. And if they can find any personal use of it, they will disallow it.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you all
Now,
for sharing that. That's definitely been a question on my mind as well. Thank you for the question. What are some
I don't like to use it because I
deductions?
don't want them in my house.
Oh goodness, what are some deductions that clergy are not aware of that are really significant deductions?
Hmm. Again, the mileage is a good piece. Your meals that you have with other clergy or discussing higher up, if you have a bishop or presiding elder, you have a ministerial alliance and all those things. If you have dues, subscriptions, those are just a few things that you may not be aware of.
Well, what I tend to do with my clients is have an accountable plan set in place. And with an accountable plan, a lot of things become reimbursed, and reimbursables are not subject to income taxes unless it exceeds the actual cost of the reimbursement. For an example, healthcare costs can be a part of my accountable plan for reimbursements. Uh, and the church can reimburse me for the cost of my health care. So I don't get taxed on it, and I still can deduct it on my Schedule A if I'm able to itemize. It's
Right.
almost like a free double dip. The same thing with housing. When I have my housing line set up correctly, I can deduct it against my income, pay no income tax on it. I do pay self-employment tax on my housing, but not income taxes. And again, legally can take the deduction on Schedule A for my property tax. I'm deducting my property taxes twice legally.
No, run that back.
And again, Doc, a lot of
Wait
times,
a minute. Your
let me,
property taxes twice?
Yes, because it's part of my housing allowance, which is a complete exemption of any income taxes. So my housing allowance is exempt from income taxes.
Lord Jesus.
let me help a little bit because I see the finger on the jaw. When the form that we were speaking about, and I'm remiss on having it up right now, but when you develop the formula, when you use the IRS form and you develop those criterias that make up the ingredients for your housing allowance, though the taxes is one of those ingredients, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
So it's already in the housing allowance. So it's not two lines that you deducted. It's already in the housing allowance. The second thing that your audience may not understand is Schedule A. He mentioned Schedule A of the income tax form several times. And it's easier for some people because of their income or lack of deductions to take a standard deduction and not use the Schedule A. So that segregates more deductions that segregate many of the deductions we're talking about. Now, there's a way around it, but that I wanted to make sure you understood when he said Schedule A, taking the charitable contribution, the taxes, the interest, your health, your items such as interest paid on your mortgage and all those things on Schedule A that can come up higher than standard deduction. But if they do not come up higher, then there's another means that you have to look at.
We do have another question. Can only pastors do housing allowance?
Say it again. I didn't hear the question.
Can
I'll go
only
ahead, Doc, if you got
pastors
it.
do housing allowance?
Ordained pastors, yes. If you're not an ordained pastor, if you're just a preacher, you have no congregation, you're not going to have a housing allowance.
Okay.
And as long as we have military, we will have housing allowances because the housing allowance for pastors was modeled after the generals in the military. So as long as the military in place, housing will be in place.
They're not going to change that at all. They're not going to change that.
Well,
They
well,
tried.
well, one of the purpose again is not to segregate or discriminate if you're not a pastor, but it's the one term I like to leave with your audience is convenience. Many churches do not have a parcel. Many churches do not have a place for the pastor to stay next to the church. So if the people can get to the church, they normally could get to the pastor. Or if people call the pastor or call the church, the pastor can get to the people. Well, we don't have that now. And many churches cannot afford a parcel. So the convenience is the main reason the housing allowance, the convenience for the generals, convenience for any organization that provides housing allowance is for the purpose, excuse me, is for the convenience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. She says that clears that up. I'm not sure, Jesse Faye, what you mean by what if you don't get housing allowances? Are you saying that that's not built into your salary with your church?
No, I just get a salary, a flat salary, just for uh, my for pastoring. That's all. But I do most of everything he was talking about. But that's all I get, that flat salary.
Oh, I think that goes into a good question. When you're initiating or in the initial conversation with the congregation about structuring how your salary should be built, um, what are some questions that need to be asked, and what are some requirements for yourself that need to be a part of your salary? We know housing allowance needs to be in there, but how do we determine how much of that should be housing allowance? How much of that should go towards salary? I've heard and seen that 100% of your salary could be housing allowance. Can you all speak to that? He's smiling. Uh-huh.
I'm, I'm going to ask Doc to help me out here. I'm remiss on pulling the form up that the IRS used to develop the housing allowance. It'll take me a few minutes to get to it, and I could email it to you a little bit later.
Okay.
So there's no misunderstanding on what the IRS looks for ingredients for the housing allowance. The second part, and many pastors do this, once the housing allowance is determined, and it's determined that you're going to have a $40,000 salary, and of that $40,000 salary, based on the form that you filled out, I'm going to use a few ingredients. You have your mortgage or your rent, you have your utilities, you have your taxes, you have your insurance, and there's some other ingredients that go with the housing allowance. And let's say that comes up to, on an annual basis, of $60,000. But your church that you're pastoring is only paying you $40,000. And the church can only afford to pay $40,000. It's okay to identify in writing what portion of that $40,000 is going to be housing allowance. It's a win-win situation. You've already proven and satisfied the IRS requirements. You've already shown your deacons, your stewards, your trustees, whoever it is, the finance department, that you can rate that amount. So now the person doing the W-2 has to put it on there. And it can be called flex salary, it can be called whatever. And it can all be included. It could be the other way if you was making a $100,000 church salary, but your housing allowance form only came up to $40,000. Then 40,000 of that 100 would be written in block 14 or 13, whatever that is, 14. And it would be housing allowance. Then the 60,000 is what you'll be taxed on. So that's part of it. I'll defer to Doc for the rest of it.
Well, one of the things I've seen happen in churches time and time again is if the air conditioning unit go out, they will call a technician who is licensed, who's bonded, et cetera, because they want the air fixed. or if the heat goes out, the same principle. But when it comes to finances, they get someone that they just know who's good with numbers. And I think that's where the church gets off track. If you treat the finance with the same intentionality we do with our heating and air, I think the church will be in a greater position to help yourself and the pastor. The housing allowance is a gift from God. And when it's used correctly, it will bless the pastor and his family in financial ways that will give benefits for years to come. And you can also help use that to create generational wealth. My experience over the past several years, and particularly after the case that was settled with Rick Warren about the housing allowance, the Internal Revenue Service wants to have some part of that money set aside for salary. So I have some clergy person right now whose salary is $1 a week. So they get $52 in salary, and all the rest of it is in housing.
Oh.
Yeah. Because sometimes during examination, if there is no salary, the argument becomes if you don't have any salary, you can't have any housing. And so to avoid all that, $1 a week, they $52 a year in salary, and the other, $39,948 is housing, total $40,000. It goes back again to getting reputable people with knowledgeable information that is justifiable, showing where it comes from, section number, whatever it is, what regulation code, whatever it is, so that you're not just pulling numbers out of the air, you're actually doing what's right and within the boundaries of the law.
Yep.
That is good. Well, we'll take some more questions if there's any questions in the chat.
Did
I
that
do not
answer
see that there are some, but if you have any, are there any maybe a tip, additional tip that you all may want to leave with those who are viewing the Zoom that we haven't covered? And I will say this is part one. Part two will happen on April 8th at noon. And so during this particular, I'll bring it up, during this particular podcast episode, we will, let's see, we will discuss some advanced issues, errors that are seen on clergy taxes, as well as some more information in regards to retirement planning. So make sure that you lock us in. It's going to be a Wednesday, so it's not a Thursday. Again, it's going to be on Zoom, and it's going to be at noon Central Standard Time. And so we'll make sure that everybody gets that information out, gets access to that information as well. And absolutely, I'll make sure that I send out the contact information for both panelists. Dr. Yancy, you were going to share?
I was just verifying that helped the one question that came about the flex pay. She had asked about her housing was included in her salary.
Well, I'm learning now. I've been preaching for 28 years, but I never got allowance for housing allowance. So I just wanted to know I just wanted to know. And so thank you for clarifying that for me.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's a new term for me. Flex. What did you call it? Flex.
Flex pay, basically they're combining your housing allowance throughout the year in your salary. But at the end of the year, they're identifying it on a W-2 form.
Okay. Good term.
Well, Doc, looks like regardless what we had on our schedule on April the 8th at noon, we know where we're getting lunch at.
Absolutely, no problem. I'm gonna eat every day.
Goodness, I appreciate you all so much. Very grateful to be able to have you all, excuse me, to come on and share your wisdom and insight. I do love the fact that one of the takeaways is that connecting with uh, someone who is well versed in clergy taxes and clergy finances is not as hard or difficult as we may have perceived it to be, and that it is extremely rewarding to know how to do it the right way instead of tripping over and figuring out that the wrong way will get you tied up. So I appreciate both of you and excited about April 8th at noon. So make sure that you all that are watching, that you all will share. And then also in the meantime, in between time, make sure that you all send in some questions that come up so that we can make sure that we touch on those, because sometimes thoughts, ideas, questions come up. And so that we can be prepared to be able to discuss those in our next podcast. We do have a total of about 10 podcasts that we'll do before the end of July. Excuse me. So we'll have information forthcoming on those particular podcasts. But again, we thank Reverend Dr. David Yancy and also Dr. Crittle, who have both been influential within the faith community as well as the finance community. And we are so grateful to have you join us today. And we anticipate even more engagements. Absolutely. The recordings will always be shared. We have somebody that asked, will the recording be shared? Absolutely. Because I want to go back and review this and have some side conversations with both Dr. Crittle and Reverend Yancy. Because there's so much information that I think that we have received just by way of people passing it down, but that we actually do have some experts in the field that we can trust and utilize. So I'll make sure that I send out the forms that that they will supply, as well as their contact information so that you can get in contact with them. And so thank you both for today. This has been amazing and exciting to talk about practical advice in regards to clergy taxes. So thank you all. Do you have any final things to say? I see, did you all call each other before? Because you all are on the spectrum of blue today. Blue shirts, aqua green shirt.
Hey,
I
enjoying
see you
life.
showing us your chain. I see the button is not buttoned all the way up. I see it's got, you
It's tax
opened up an
season.
extra button. You
It's
said
tax
tax
season.
season?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. And you are fortunate and blessed, and I consider you a friend because you are taking us directly away from our job.
Exactly.
Oh
No,
goodness.
I
I think
would,
you
I would.
I appreciate you, but I also know, and I'll share this with you all because this is always a fun fact. Uh Reverend Yancey's wife, who I'm always going to shout out, she is my big sister. I have been in Memphis for 17, 18 years. And my whole time that I have lived here, I've always, at least majority of the time, have lived 7 minutes away from her. And so I moved across town, and then they got a house built 7 minutes away from me. So the connection that we have supersedes time and space. We will always be connected. Reverend Yancy is number one, number two go to at all times in regards to finances regarding the church, personal finances. And so I'm glad that we'll be able to share both Dr. Crittle and Reverend Yancey's information, because I think that you all are going to be so appreciative of the revelation that they'll give you. And so some things that we perceive to be hard, it's not hard. We just may be a bit uninformed. And so I appreciate these settings to where we can get informed and so that we can move differently. And as the podcast pushes, we empower faithful stewardship. And so that's
Amen.
what
Amen.
our aim
Yeah.
is. So thank you
Dr.
all so much. Yes, sir.
Reverend Gunn, if I could add, and maybe Doctor can make his final comments as well, I would encourage everybody to spend at least once a month, put it on your calendar that you budget yourself, spend your personal, spend time with your finances. You know, take your time, because he mentioned about funding your retirement, and the retirement it has to be planned. It cannot just happen. It has to be planned. So spending one hour or so, at least a month, on your budgeting, on your planning, on reviewing things. Don't wait till the end of the year and try to review everything. So I'd encourage you and challenge you to do that until our next meeting. Doc, final comment?
Well, I would say the bivocational pastor, when they set that stuff up in a very strategic way, they get the benefit of the money and minimize of the tax exposure. It's about planning in advance, and bivocational pastors, which makes up the vast majority of pulpits, are throwing away thousands, if not millions of dollars in unnecessary taxes because of inappropriate planning.
Yeah.
And so planning, having the right person like Reverend Yancy and myself make all the difference in the world. And I'm going to give you a non-biased review. The only two people know what they're doing in the whole country. You look at them right now, Yancy and Crittle.
I'm so tickled. Well, I will leave everybody with this that falls right in line with what we've been saying. If you do not plan where your money will go where you did not plan. All righty, everybody. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you all April 8th. Have a great week.
All right. Be blessed.
Take care. Thank you all so much.